Hola chicos, buenos días. Ya voy viendo algunos de sus nombres. Los que vayan entrando, vayan poniendo su nombre, por favor, para que vaya tomando asistencia. Tengo que ya está por ahí Conde, Fernanda Uribe, Vale Morales, Rodo, Miriam, Gabo, Sara, Quique, Fer Durán, Lizzy, Hanna, Fanny, Jessica, Carol, Eric, Jania, Carla, Isabel, Jessica, bien. Entonces, para que vayan poniendo su nombre, tan pronto vayan entrando y pueda tomar asistencia. Ok. Ayelen, Daira, va. Voy a pedir que tengan a la mano, si es posible, una libretita o la libreta si la tienen de cívica, porque hoy van a tomar unas anotaciones muy breves que me parece que les van a ayudar para poder realizar la actividad que tienen en la plataforma. Jamie, André, ok. Entonces, para que la tengan ahí a la mano y van a copiar únicamente las partes que yo les indique. El texto es muy corto, de hecho, si lo pueden hacer más corto, lo pueden resumir, no tengo ningún problema. Mientras contenga las ideas principales, asegúrense de que contenga las ideas principales porque eso es lo que les va a ayudar a su actividad. Adriano. Ok. Bien. Tienen en su pantalla el tema que vamos a discutir el día de hoy, que es Human Rights. That's going to be the title, so I'd like you to write the title down, and so I can start explaining. Giovanni, bien, okay. That's going to be the title, so write it down. Elias, good. When we talk about human rights, this is something that nowadays is very common. We basically hear everyday news about human rights, how important they are. I mean, we even watch videos about people not respecting human rights. This is common everywhere. It's all over the news. Everybody's into human rights. Everybody's into defending people with no human rights. Like, this is the topic nowadays. However, do you think it would be important for us to know how we got human rights and why? Why do you think it would be important for us to know in which moment in history we know or we got human rights? And I know that probably in some cases you would say, well, maybe it's not that important for me in this moment. I have other things to think about, and I get it. I mean, we sometimes we think like that, but the topic that I'm considering here is that knowing the history of something can be a good thing. So do you think it is important to know the history of how we got human rights? Why do you say, or why would you say that it's important? Let's see in the comments if you can write down why do you think it's important. I'm going to write down the question. So I can see Amaury and Renata. Here's the question. I'm writing it down. It reads, why is it important to know how we got human rights? And I'm reading some answers. It says, let's see, Jessica, to have certain liberties, maybe. Okay, that's a good example, to have certain liberties. Any other answer that you can think of? Why is it important to know how we got human rights? Let's see, Ayelen says, to understand what some people did for everyone. Okay, that's a very good one. That's a very good answer. Anybody else who wants to comment? Here we have Elias, for a better coexistence. Okay, thank you. And I have, let's say, Hania. It says, it's important that young people understand these rights and responsibilities. This will help to protect them. Okay, that's also a very good answer. When we understand how we got them, we understand how to protect them. Okay, I don't know if you have done this exercise, or I don't know if you have done this story that I'm going to mention. But this is something that probably you could do these moments that we are having the quarantine. This is something that I would suggest you to do with your parents. I don't know, again, I don't know if you know the story of these aspects. Do you know, for example, I want you to think about some things that you probably have in your house. And because the topic, as I said, nowadays is everyone has rights. Every human has rights. And I want you to think, uh, when you want to go somewhere, for you, it's very easy. It's very easy to say, okay, let's have a ride, or please, mom or dad, take me to my friend's house, and we need to go and we need to take the car. And you think about the car like something, in some cases, without importance. But I want you to ask yourselves, if you know the story of how your parents got the car or the van that you have nowadays. Do you know the story of how they got it? Probably this would be a good exercise for them. I mean, for you, that you could ask them how they got the car that probably you have nowadays. Why? Because what I'm saying is, sometimes we don't know the history of something, and we take some things for granted. Like, we know they exist, and we don't really think about them anymore because they are there, and it's part of our normal routines. But try this, go and ask your parents how they got the car, and probably you would be surprised to find that this was a story of probably sacrifice, many days of work, many days of probably saving money to finally going and buy the car. Or if you don't want to think about the car, think about probably asking them how they got the job that they have nowadays. I'm sure that in many cases of your parents, it took years of preparation, it took years of studying, it took many opportunities. Nobody, literal, oh, I like to think that nobody uh, gets a really good job without starting sometimes first in a job they didn't like so much. So I don't know if you know the story of your parents, like how did they get the job that they have nowadays? Or if they are running a company or a business, how did they make it grow enough so they could afford having many of the things that you have? How did they do it? What did they have to put into the business or into the work so they could have nowadays the job that they have or the business that they have? Because I'm sure, and you're going to find this in your parents, a history of success in many cases because they had to work, because they had to struggle probably with a bad boss in some cases, or because they had to struggle with saving money or not buying what they wanted because they had to save it for something else. Or if you don't want to think about the job, think about the house that you have nowadays. Probably it would be a good idea for you to ask them how did they get the house that they have or that you have nowadays. How did they build it? So basically my question is, or my suggestion is, go and ask your parents how did they get what they have. Why? Because knowing the history of things can help you appreciate them more. In this case, the car, or the job that they have, or the house that you have. So it's my suggestion. This is a suggestion that I'd like you to do because it's related with the topic that we're dealing right now, in a way, because the question was how did we get human rights, and why is it important for us to know the history of human rights? Well, the answer is basically because with that we can value them. We don't take them for granted. We appreciate the rights that we have nowadays. So in this class, we're going to see very briefly the story of how we got human rights. And to start with, you need to understand that humans all of us, we are social beings. That means we cannot live by ourselves. We cannot live in isolation. We have something, people say, in our brains that makes us want to be in the company of some other people. And for that reason, since the beginning of times, when people were nomads and later on when they became sedentary, they tried to form groups of people. Sometimes they were big, sometimes they were small, sometimes they were only their close relatives or the family. But at the end, is basically everybody or every human being wanted to have a group or wanted to be part of a group. Now, being part of a group, as you can see in the picture, no matter how big or no matter how small they were, every group was formed to live and coexist through history in peace. That is the sole purpose of human beings, to live and coexist with others in peace. So groups were formed, but in those groups, as you can read here, in all of the groups, no matter how big or no matter how small, they always had a certain set of norms or codes of behavior. Why do you think was important to have those set of norms or codes of behavior? Like, why having rules in the groups? Again, in some cases, they were great civilizations with thousands of people belonging to the same group. In other cases, it was just a family, a group of family or nomads traveling from one place to the other. But no matter how the size, I mean, no matter the size of the group, they always had a set of norms or codes of behavior. So the question is why? Why is it important, or why was it important for groups to have a set of norms? Here you have the question. Why was it important for groups to have a set of norms or rules? And we are reading Fanny. This one, yes, this one I'd like you to copy it, please. Here we have the answer. To keep the peace. Very good, exactly. To live in peace. Not to damage the rights of others. Very good. Very good, Fanny, Lizzie, Ayelen. Exactly. That was the sole purpose of having rules. Because humans, we like to live in peace and in harmony with the rest. So for that reason, it was important that groups establish certain rules. And those rules, as you could read, they gave people responsibilities in the group, but they also gave them rights. Now, they are not the rights as we know them nowadays. I'm looking some other answers: to be respectful and helping these interactions and activities happen in an orderly way to avoid chaos and conflict. Exactly. So these rules basically gave them responsibilities, how to behave, what to do, what not to do, but it also gave them rights. And some of the great civilizations, well, there were some documents that prove precisely that people in the past, they used to have rights or they used to have rules. And some examples are precisely these ones. This is the number one. It's the Holy Vedas. It has more than 100 hymns, some concerning legal aspects. That is a text. Let's see if you know more or less from which culture it belonged. Which culture did it belong? Do you think? Do you think it did belong? The Holy Vedas. These are some ancient writings that we have. Well, I mean, historians have found that prove that people had rules in the past. It says Andre, Tibet. Well, India, exactly. It belonged to the Indian culture, and again, it proves people had rules written in the past. Another text is the Code of Hammurabi. This book, well, not it's not a book. This writing shows over 200 laws. There are more than 100 rules for family, more than 100 rules for for coexistence in the town, and there are some that are part, sorry, of here we have of business. Now, where do you think this comes from? The Code of Hammurabi. Some say China. No, it's not from China. In this part, you don't need to copy anything yet. Here you have the answer. It was Babylonian. Very good, Fanny. So this text was Babylonian, and it represented precisely that they had laws. And finally, I'm sure you have heard from this one, the Quran, containing around 500 verses with legal content. Where was the Quran from, or from which culture did it belong? The Quran. Let's see. Which culture? Islam. Here we have. To Islam, exactly. Around 500 verses refer to legal situations. So as you can see, there are many, in fact, there are many texts where people used to have laws in the past. And probably one of the most common, well, for us, is this book, the Bible. In the Bible, you know that, or more or less, you know that it was written, the first five books contain the Ten Commandments, and many people believe it only had the Ten Commandments, los 10 mandamientos. Many people believe that's all the laws and that's all the legislation existing in the Bible. It exactly. Thank you, Elias. It's for the people of Israel, and it does not include only those 10 commandments. The law, the five books of the law, are the first five books of the Bible, and they include more than 600 laws for the people of Israel. So again, many people believe it's only 10. However, it's actually more than 600. Now, they were not the only cultures who had some sort of rules. The Aztecs, the Incas, they also some Hispanic cultures, basically all Hispanic cultures had laws. The only difference was that they were transmitted usually through oral traditions. They were not in a written text. So that would be the only difference. This part, you don't need to copy it. Don't worry. I'm going to be telling you when you need to copy something. Okay. So moving on, we need to understand this part. You are going to copy it. It's very short. How the figure of men have evolved through history. And we see, or we're going to see that in the beginning, men were slaves. That was the conception. That was the figure of men. That was the condition of men. If they were not part of the people who ruled the country, they were usually slaves. Now, in the Middle Ages, the situation was transformed. They were not slaves anymore. Now they had something else, a different figure called servants. Now they were free in a way, like I'm going to put it like this, free, but they have to serve somebody. And finally, nowadays the concept that defines everybody, we're not slaves, we're not servants, we're citizens in the eyes of the law. How did we become citizens? And this is the simplest explanation. We became citizens. Well, you can take a screenshot, or you can, I don't know, take a photo. I'm going to move on so you can put it later into your notebook. We became citizens in a moment of history called the French Revolution. During this time, people were servants, but they were also tired of the corruption. They were also tired of being hungry, and that they had to pay a lot of taxes. So they rebelled against the king, Louis XVI. They killed the king. They executed him in the guillotine, and later on, they established a form of government with brought and they wrote a text known as the Declaration of Human Rights. Sorry, Declaration of Rights of the Man and of the Citizen. And this declaration had three principles that you can see here. It's French for, well, you see liberté, égalité, et fraternité. What do you think it means? Those three principles. What is the meaning of those three principles? Here you have the question again. What's the meaning of the main principles for human rights? Liberty, very good, Max. One is freedom. Okay, let's see, Andre has it here. Freedom, equality, fraternity, very good. Or in Spanish, well, we have it here, libertad, libertad, no es legalidad, es igualdad y fraternidad. Es decir, este principio que nos hace ser o considerarnos a todos como hermanos y con los mismos derechos. Okay, so those were the three principles. From this moment in history, people said, okay, all rights have to be based on those three principles. People have to be free. People have to be equal. We all should be considered as brothers. And for that reason, everybody has to be able to fulfill their needs. Those were the three main principles that guided every human right in history. That is actually the motto or lema for France. Here you have it. Now, this part, you are also going to copy it. In this moment, the concept of citizen was born. Before that, people were not considered citizens. They were just considered servants or, in some cases, slaves. But in this moment, and because of this document, people started being considered as citizens. They had some inalienable rights. Here is the definition: rights that you have from the moment you are born with. You have them, such as freedom, life, and expression. So everybody was basically super happy about having rights in the moment they were born, like having the right of life, having the right of freedom, having the right of expression. So everybody was basically like into having rights. That was the big deal. But it didn't last very much. First World War came, and especially Second World War came. I'm sorry, I'm gonna put it here again so you can have a picture or a screenshot, and then I move on. Okay, so people were into it, but First World War and Second World War proved that these rights were not respected. And it happened especially during the Second World War with the Nazis. If you know a little bit about the Nazis, you probably remember, or probably you saw that in history last year, that when they sent prisoners into the camps, they put some badges. I'm going to write, well, here you have it. They put some badges or some signs to differentiate the different groups. And here are the Nazi badges of identification. The main one was Jews. They identify Jews by this triangle that you can see in yellow. But the Jews were not the only people who suffered during the Second World War. Here you have in the picture, an inverted triangle in red was put to political communists. the black to antisocial people or unemployed. Sometimes this one, the black one that you can see, was applied to people with mental diseases. So just so you could consider it. The purple triangle was for Jehovah's Witnesses, the blue triangle, ethnic minorities, and the other one that I want to see your attention on, the pink one, was for homosexuals. So what they did is they put the badges into their uniform. They had to wear them so they could be identified as a member of one of these groups. Now, as you can see, many people suffered discrimination during the Second World War. If we talk about rights, for example, if you take into account, I don't know, Jews or Jehovah's Witnesses, you can see that one right, which right was not respected. I'm going to put it here. Which right, which human right was not respected with Jews and Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, let's see. Which right, which liberty we have nowadays, and it was not respected with Jews or Jehovah's Witnesses and Jehovah's Witnesses. The freedom of what? Anybody? The freedom of liberty. Okay, well, that's one. The freedom of liberty. But this one, something that we have, Eric, good. The freedom of religion. The believe in whatever we want. And for example, in the case of homosexuals, well, the freedom of wanting to, I mean, deciding about our gender. Or political communists, the freedom of expression. So there were many rights that were, how can we say it, stepped on during the Second World War, especially by the Nazi parties. And that led that after the Second World War, a group of 56 nations was created, called the League of Nations. The League of Nations is what we know nowadays as the Organización de las Naciones Unidas, la ONU. In the past, before it was called ONU, or in English, UNO, it was called the League of Nations. And that League of Nations wrote a document known as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In that document, they established that people should be free, they should be treated equally, they should have privileges as freedom of religion, deciding about their lives, and many others. But one characteristic about this is that in this document, it was established that all members of the different countries who were part of the League of Nations had to obey this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So if you wanted to be part of this League of Nations, of this group of nations, you have to respect the rights of everybody in your country. Let's say nobody who was part of the League of Nations could prohibit in his country people to be part of a religion, or people to have sexual preferences different to others. This was established in this document. Many constitutions around the world are based or used some of these parts of the document to write the Constitution. And Mexican Constitution is also based or has included some aspects of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And this is a short history of how nowadays we in Mexico, we have human rights. And we have it because, just to sum it up, many people in the past had to fight for these freedoms. Many people had to die for them, and especially many people put their voice or made their voice heard, so they could have human rights. Mexico has a constitution that protects many of our rights, and we have them because a lot of people had to experience many things. So far, this was the class. You will have an activity on the platform. I'm going to compartir. Okay, so you will have an activity on the platform with a few questions that you have to write an answer based on what you had on the video, and also based on some parts of the book. You can get it from the book, and I give you more information here in the virtual class. And also there is a chart that you need to complete, where you have to include some of the documents that I mentioned. They are also in the book, so you can get information from here or from the book. Now, this activity was open today, or is open today, and you will have to deliver it by Monday. Monday is the time limit, is the day limit. So you have enough time to do it. I mean, if you don't want to work during the weekend, you can do it today, or you can do it by Monday. No, wait, today's Thursday. Sorry. It's by tomorrow. By tomorrow at 7. I made a mistake. Sorry, guys. So I don't know if you have any more questions. If you have them, remember that you can send me an email, or it says, Profe, ya le llegó mi actividad. Yes, I have received some. Carol, I think I received yours. And well, I will be receiving some more. Well, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email. Thank you very much for being present today. I hope everyone in your family, and I hope every one of yourselves are good. Please continue respecting the rules established by the government, and I hope to see you soon. Dice Isabel, hasta el sábado, profe, porfa. Ok, hasta el sábado. Pongo la fecha hasta el sábado. Cuídense, nos estamos viendo. Cualquier duda estoy ahí en el correo.